Hello everyone, peace be upon you. Before we begin, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe, and stay with me until the end of the story. Also, leave a comment telling me which city and country you're watching from. I'd love to see how far my story has reached. For those of you who have already subscribed, I sincerely wish you good health, ease in all your affairs, abundant blessings, and may all your hopes and dreams come true. Amen. Now, let's begin the story. The bus doors folded open and hot Arizona air rushed in like a warning. Lauren stepped down onto the dust at Fort Rockland with her ruck on one shoulder and her rifle case in her hand. The place looked like it was carved straight into the desert, metal barracks glinting under a hard sun, wind kicking grit along the asphalt, the range towers lined up against a horizon of red rock. Drill voices echoed from somewhere near the motor pool. It smelled like gun oil, sun-baked rubber, and sand. She kept her head level and her pace steady. Black Mesa Barracks hummed with first-day noise. Boots thumped, lockers slammed, someone was already doing push-ups for talking back. Lauren claimed a lower bunk, folded her uniforms tight, slid a dog-eared ballistics notebook into the top drawer, and locked her case. Across the aisle, a tall guy with a square jaw and a too-loud laugh looked her over like she'd taken a wrong turn. Marcus. He swung his duffel down, smirked, and aimed the comment just loud enough. Hope the desert treats you gentle, Montana. She didn't answer. She checked her watch, tied her hair back, and walked out to formation. Sergeant Bill Carter waited at the front with his arms crossed, the kind of quiet that said he'd seen everything and didn't need to prove any of it. His briefing was short. This base would strip excuses and teach reality. Hydrate, shut up, move fast, do it right. Ironwood Ridge at 0500. The first run chewed people up. Sand trapped inside boots, sun burned the back of the neck, and the wind felt like it wanted to push you back downhill. Lauren ran like she did back home on frozen mornings in Helena, small steps, even breathing, no rush, no drama. She let the loud ones sprint and fade. She reached the water buffalo with salt on her cheeks and a clean pulse. Bill's glance lingered an extra second, nothing more. At the range, the talk got thicker. Guys clustered around the racks of rifles like they were at a car show. Lauren checked out her M24, slow and methodical. Bolt smooth, glass clear, trigger crisp, stock tight. She wiped dust from the scope cap with a shirt corner and laid out her data book. Marcus leaned on the bench 2 down and made sure everyone could hear him. Careful with that. She bites. Jake, younger and quieter, stood between their lanes. Targets at 3 and 5 today, he said, half to himself, half to her. Copy, Lauren said. The wind at Ironwood Ridge was messy, little flags twitching different ways downrange, mirage sliding like water at 300. The instructors called cold bore. Lauren settled into prone, built her position like stacking bricks, feet flat, toes out, bipod planted, bag under the stock, cheek pressure light, breath steady. She didn't shoot. Not yet. She watched the dust devils and counted their drift across the lane. She made a small note in the margin of her book. When she did send the first round, it wasn't dramatic. Just a clean crack, a quick trace, and a paper slap. She held for wind, fired again. Tight group, a touch right. She kissed a half-minute back and sent 2 more. The cluster closed. She didn't look around. She adjusted, scanned, and went to 500. The ridge gusted harder. A couple of lanes over, someone cursed at a flyer. Marcus fired fast, then faster. Lauren waited out a gust, exhaled to the bottom, surprised the break. The steel rang, 1 beat behind the shot. She cycled, settled, sent another. It rang again. Somebody said, "No way," soft, like they didn't mean anyone to hear it. Bill moved down the line, boots slow in the grit. He looked at targets, not faces. When he reached Lauren's lane, he crouched, eyes on the book. "Who taught you to hold wind like that?" he asked, voice even. Home, she said. He nodded once and stood. Keep it boring, he said. Boring wins. Lunch was shade and canteen water that tasted like warm pennies. Jake picked at an umari and kept glancing at the range like it might disappear if he blinked. You shoot like that a lot? He asked. I shoot like that when it matters, Lauren said. It wasn't attitude. It was a fact she'd learned in snow and silence behind a stack of wood and an old pickup, her grandfather whispering about patience and gravity and how the wind never cared about your feelings. Afternoon drills shifted to movement and positions. Kneeling, sitting, barricade, time pressure. Sweat stung eyes, rifles got heavier, and the instructors didn't slow down to check on anybody's pride. Lauren's groups opened a little, then tightened, then opened again when a gust hit wrong. She didn't chase it. She logged it, light change, time of day, temp rise, mirage boil. She didn't talk much. She didn't need to. At evening formation, the sun went red and mean over the ridge, and the flag snapped hard. Bill gave notes: stop muscling triggers, stop blaming wind for bad calls, pack feet flatter in prone, drink more, talk less. He didn't call names. He didn't have to. When he dismissed, some dragged to chow. Some went to phones. Lauren went back to Ironwood with permission and a single-lane light. The range at dusk sounded different. Cooler, emptier. Her heartbeat set the cadence. She fired 5 at 300, then wrote down what the air told her. She fired 3 at 500, listened to the steel answer out of the dark, then closed her book. On the walk back, the base felt smaller. The barracks windows glowed. The motor pool was quiet. Somewhere behind the admin tents, a rotor thumped once and quit. Rumor said a SEAL cadre would visit this cycle. She didn't dwell on it. She showered, hung her towel, and lay back on the lower bunk with her hands crossed on her chest, the kind of tired that sinks into bone but doesn't steal focus. Marcus laughed in the hall, brag heavy and hollow. Jake's voice answered, lower, not picking a fight. Someone down the row snored already. Lauren stared at the bunk slats above her and replayed the wind at 500, the way the mirage flattened for half a breath right before the hit. She pictured Echo Valley, the longer range beyond the ridge, where the gusts would run like they had a grudge. She could almost taste the grit there. Lights out dropped the room into a gray hush. She closed her eyes and saw snow instead of sand, a narrow cut through pines, her granddad's hands on the stock of a beat-up rifle, his voice steady, slow is smooth, smooth is fast, don't chase the bullet, make the bullet chase you. She breathed it in and let Arizona's heat push the memory back into place. Reveille would punch them awake at 0430. Ironwood again at 0500. Same sun, same dust, same flags pulling different directions. She didn't plan speeches. She didn't plan answers. She planned holds. She planned positions. She planned to make it boring again. Out there, boring meant repeatable. Repeatable meant true. And true was the only thing that carried when the talking got loud and the wind got mean. Out on the dark range, a coyote called once and went quiet. Inside, Lauren rolled to her side and pulled the thin blanket to her shoulder. Fort Rockland would test everyone soon enough: lungs, legs, patience, ego. She didn't need to prove she belonged by being the loudest person in the room. She'd prove it the only way that ever worked. One shot at a time, that was the plan, and it met the morning head-on at 0430 when the barracks lights snapped on and the hallway filled with boots. Lauren rolled out, laced tight, and felt that steady hum in her chest that never came from coffee. Ironwood at 0500, then Echo Valley after chow. Word spread fast at formation, visiting cadre inbound. Not rumor anymore. Navy. Bill's tone gave nothing away, but the corners of his eyes said the day would cut closer to the bone. The run to the ridge was shorter, the pace crueler. Sand stung shins and calves, and the wind had already woken up angry. Marcus kept near the front, tossing looks over his shoulder like he was measuring who deserved to be there. Jake fell in at Lauren's side without speaking. At the range, instructors moved target frames and checked wind meters that couldn't agree with each other. Flags pulled in 3 different directions. Bill pointed to the steel at 500 and 700. No excuses. You own your call. Send dumb rounds, you own those too. The first relay went loud. Misses stacked up early, left edge, then off paper, then someone cursed at a scope cap left closed. Lauren built her position and waited for the pattern. The gusts weren't steady, they pulsed. She watched dust lift in little sheets, counted beats between the flags. Her first round snapped out, settled, and the steel sounded late. She held a sliver more, broke another, then another. Group formed. Not perfect. Honest. Trucks rolled in behind the tower. Men in drab kit climbed down, helmets on, comms cords looped and taped. The room muttered even though there weren't any walls. Chief Petty Officer Ramirez walked with the easy weight of someone who'd carried more than gear, eyes scanning lanes, hands quiet. Commander Reynolds followed, straight-backed and unreadable, stopping just far enough away to make everyone lean with their ears. Bill met them with a nod and a clipped brief. They didn't do speeches. Ramirez watched the next string from behind Lauren's shoulder, just outside her peripheral. He said nothing. When she went cold bore at 700, the Mirage lay flat and then buckled. She waited through 2 breaths, let the sight picture settle, and broke it on the third. The steel answered. Ramirez's chin dipped once, like he'd seen what he needed. Reynolds moved to the center of the line. Field problem. Unknown distances, moving targets, staggered times. You'll work pairs. Shooter and spotter. Switch on command. He looked down the row until eyes hooked his. You'll fail if you go fast before you go right. Pairs formed messy and loud. Marcus snagged a spotter scope and swung it like a trophy. I'll call, he said to Jake, then to Lauren, unless you need training wheels. Bill cut the noise with one word from 20 feet away, enough. The course kicked off hot. Targets popped from scrub and dropped back. Distances lied for a living. The valley threw crosswinds in pockets that canceled without warning. Lauren and Jake worked clean and quiet. He called a hold, she adjusted, then she called his next before he could. When the command flipped them, Jake settled and sent 2 good shots at 400. Marcus and his partner burned ammo like they were bailing water with holes in the bucket. Halfway through, the cadre added stress, short sprint to a barricade, kneeling transitions, a forced mag change. Sweat got into eyes, breath got ragged. Lauren's mind stayed on rails, build the house, call the air, break the shot. She missed one left when she chased a gust that died on her, logged it in her head, and corrected without apology. Then Echo Valley. The trucks bounced them down a washboard road to a longer stretch of misery. Ranges painted on rocks looked like jokes, the real numbers hid in angles. Reynolds laid it out simple, top 10 shooters move on, the rest learn what they didn't want to. The wind here didn't talk, it shoved. Mirage boiled. The far steel looked like it was breathing. First string chewed egos. Miss, edge, miss. Someone's bolt rode over a round and locked wrong. Someone else blamed ammo. Ramirez drifted behind lanes like a tide, taking everything in, giving nothing back. Lauren dropped prone, toes out, knees loose, bag under, stock pocketed. She watched heat wobble, watched weeds lean, felt the push on her cheek. She dialed less than she wanted and held more than felt fair. First round, late, heavy ring. She kept the same body, shifted her mind one click, and sent it again. Another ring, closer. Her breaths got small and honest. She dragged the reticle through a controlled lead on a swinger, broke it at the quiet spot between heartbeats. Hit. Marcus tried to muscle a solution. He slammed a magazine in, ripped a bolt like it owed him money, and fired too soon, too late, too wide. He stole a glance at Lauren like it was her fault the wind didn't respect him. His next shot missed by a yard. The wind doesn't care. Scoreboards went up on clipboards, not screens. Names slid high, names slid off. When the dust settled, Lauren sat in the top group. Marcus didn't. His jaw worked like he was chewing cruelty. Reynolds didn't gloat, didn't warn, didn't smile. He just tapped the next lane marker. Reset. The second run added a curve, spotter radios live to cadre only. No talking. Holds, ranges, wind calls had to live inside the shooter. Lauren felt the quiet press on her ears. She welcomed it. She let the valley tell the truth, not her ego. 3 hits in a row. 1 miss on a gust she should have seen. 2 more hits. She logged the miss as fuel, not shame. At the end, Bill read numbers like weather. Ramirez finally spoke to the line. Most of you fought the wind. A few of you worked with it. I remember the few. His eyes crossed Lauren's lane for a fraction, then moved on. Back at Black Mesa, chow was loud and strange. People bragged too hard or ate too quiet. Jake set his tray across from Lauren and slid her way a canteen he'd refilled. Top group, he said, like it was just another piece of gear to put away. Lauren shrugged. Tomorrow's worse. Marcus walked past and bumped her shoulder on purpose, not enough to get caught. Enjoy it, he said. Weather changes. She didn't rise. The day had already answered him. In the dim of the barracks, she cleaned her rifle slow, counted screws back into steel, checked torque by feel, logged wind in shorthand only she understood. The buses would roll again. Echo wouldn't get kinder. SEALs would not lower a bar to be liked. Conflict had a face now, and it wasn't just the wind. It wore a name tape, it ate in the same chow hall, and it would be there at sunrise, testing whether 1 shot at a time could still be enough to carry into morning when the buses roll before sunrise and Redstone Canyon waits like a bad idea you can't skip. The brief is blunt, multi-day field lanes, live stress, blank rounds for movement, live rounds for designated sniper shots under cadre control. Limited sleep, limited water outside resupply points, radios on a strict net. Reynolds runs the board. Ramirez floats. Bill sets the tone, discipline or drift. Your choice. They hump in under a sky already bleaching out. The canyon walls eat sound and throw back wind in weird angles. Teams split by chalk color and step off on staggered times. Lauren's squad gets assigned overwatch and route security for a 2-objective infill. Marcus walks hot, jaw tight, like he's trying to intimidate the rock. Jake checks comms twice and keeps his voice low. Donovan meets them at a chalk line with a tablet and a calm face. Stick to your roles, she says. No heroes. Radio clean. First hours go by on feet. Sand in socks. Heat rising off stone. They snake along a dry wash and stop under a lip of shade while Bill points with 2 fingers. Threat lanes up top, likely OP there and there. Sniper glass on the ridge by that crooked juniper. Lauren takes it in, builds a picture, and slides to a prone behind a boulder. Mirage is more honest here than Echo, it just runs uphill and tries to trick eyes with the shimmer. She doesn't shoot yet. She watches leaves flick and dust smear. When the cadre flips a steel swinger at 450, she calls wind in her head, dials elevation, and holds the rest. The command comes over net, shooter 1, send 1. She breaks it clean. The thump comes back lazy. Impact, the lane grader says. Continue movement. They climb to a saddle and the temp drops 5 degrees on the wind. Marcus keeps shading in front like he thinks Point Man is a trophy instead of a job. Twice he starts to push through a choke without a look, and twice Bill's hand clamps down on his shoulder. Eyes, not ego, Bill says, soft but final. Marcus mutters and looks away. Midday, the course turns ugly on purpose. The cadre drop a contact front drill out of nowhere. Poppers snap up, blanks crackle, someone in another lane yells, moving right. Lauren goes to glass, finds a mock OP tucked between two rocks, and laces sectors while the team peels by bounds. Her voice stays level on net. Set. Move. They ride the rhythm across the cut, then drop into a low pocket while evaluators scribble. Sweat burns. Water tastes like metal. They get 10 minutes to breathe in the shade before it's back up. Afternoon brings the first real argument. The route splits, left track is exposed but shorter, right track is longer with cover. Marcus wants left. We'll make up time. They're grading pace. Lauren reads the wind on the exposed face and looks at the map's danger areas. She keeps her voice flat. Left puts us under skylines with crosswind at our backs. Right lets me watch without painting us. Donovan arrives on the net, voice clear. Command recommends the right. Your call, squad lead. Bill looks at the team, then at the ridge. Right it is. Marcus swallows it, but not gracefully. He kicks a rock too hard and almost twists an ankle. No one says anything. The canyon says enough. The longer route buys concealment and a clean shot opportunity when a steel plate flashes at 600 from a slot in the rock. Lauren's hold feels wrong for a second, then she sees a branch twitch in the opposite direction and corrects. She takes the shot. The cadre's voice is dry. Impact. Proceed. As the sun burns sideways, phase 2 starts. Night lanes. Knots get checked by touch, chem lights go dim under tape, NVGs come out for those assigned. Lauren mounts a clip-on under cadre eyes and keeps her cheek weld honest. The canyon's edges flatten in green and black. Sound travels weird. The radios feel louder even when they whisper. They set an ambush on a mock patrol. Lauren covers the far mouth of a slot canyon where a cadre roleplayer will cross at unknown time. The wind dies to almost nothing and then slips left like a cat. She times her breaths, counts heartbeats, and keeps track of everyone's silhouette. Marcus fidgets too much behind a mesquite. Bill squeezes his shoulder once. He stills. Minutes stretch. The patrol appears, dark shapes cutting the faint starlight. On command, blanks pop, the line opens, and Lauren takes the designated shot on a steel head plate at 500. NV grain, controlled squeeze, small splash of spark. Impact. Break contact. They fall back by bounds to a rally. Someone from another squad limps in with a rolled ankle. Jake trades him a compression wrap and a clean canteen. Ramirez watches that, not the shooting, like he's logging a different kind of score. Just before dawn, fatigue shows up with both hands. People snap at small things. A mag won't seat. A strap digs into a collarbone. Marcus blows air through his teeth at a slow pace call and throws his pack down too hard. It bounces, rolls, and slides toward a drop. Lauren catches a strap with one hand and hauls it back. Marcus stares like he can't decide if he's grateful or offended. Tie it down, she says, and walks past. Sunrise hits redstone like an oven door. The final lane sets up on a high perch with a narrow field of fire and moving targets on staggered timers. Reynolds lays out the rule: you will get only the time you earn. Build the position right, win time. Build it wrong, lose it. The wind is quartering now, not constant, and every hold you think you own gets tested by a gust that wasn't on the last shot. Lauren goes first for her pair. She digs elbows, sets bag, presses toes, lets her face relax into the stock, hears her breath instead of fighting it. First target crosses slow, easy to overlead. She waits on the quiet. Break. Hit. Second kicks faster and changes direction under a patch of shimmer. She underholds on purpose to see the trace, learns, then sends the second with the right push. Hit. The lane grader clicks a stopwatch and gives them 20 extra seconds for position discipline. Jake takes his turn and rides the same groove. 2 impacts, 1 edge shave, correction, 3rd impact. Extra 10 seconds. Marcus's pair steps up and tries to buy time with speed. Bad bargain. He slams a shot into nowhere, chases the next, and only finds the third when Bill says nothing and everything with a look. The grader's voice is sandpaper. -20 for slop. Reset. They close the event on a long still at 800, heat breaking the picture into soup. Lauren dials most of the climb, holds the rest, and refuses to chase mirage. She watches the briefest settle when a cloud thin as gauze brushes the sun. She uses that window. The steel answers, faint but clean. Impact. By the time they step off the line, shoulders are raw and calves twitch. The cadre call them into a ragged half-circle under a rope of shade cloth. Reynolds speaks like a man who expects you to listen the first time. You're learning who you are when the wind lies and the clock steals. Some of you learned you can fix a miss. Some of you learned you can't fix ego under stress. Write it down. Ramirez adds 1 sentence. The canyon doesn't negotiate. On the walk out, Marcus ends up alongside Lauren without meaning to. He keeps his eyes forward. Right route was safer, he says, like he's arguing with yesterday. I would have blown the left. Lauren nods once. We didn't. It isn't a victory lap. It's a receipt. Back at Fort Rockland, Black Mesa smells like dust and detergent. They turn in blanks, sign out live, and stack rifles for cleaning. Jake drops onto a bench and grins sideways. You held 800 like it owed you money. Lauren shakes her head. It doesn't owe anyone anything. Bill stops by and taps her data book with a knuckle. You're writing more notes than most. Keep that up. He looks at Marcus next. You're lifting the rifle like it's a gym test. It isn't. Marcus nods, not eager, not sullen, just tired enough to hear it. Night closes fast after Redstone. The chow hall hums and then empties. In the barracks, Lauren lays out her kit to dry, rubs dust out of the scopes knurling with a strip of t-shirt, and shuts her eyes for a second too long. The conflict isn't just the valley or the wind or the clocks. It's the pull between noise and discipline, between show and work, between pride and results. Tomorrow won't be kinder. There's talk of a 72-hour event on the board, the one that breaks voices and cements teams. If Echo was truth and Redstone was pressure, the next thing will be fire. And fire has a way of showing everyone exactly what they are, so when the roster posted, Crucible, 72 hours, no exemptions, nobody pretended to smile. Briefing at 0530, rucks to wait, ammo accounted for, water tabs issued, radios checked. Reynolds stood at the front like a judge who'd seen every excuse. 3 days. Minimal sleep. Dynamic objectives. You will improvise without inventing. You will move without rushing. You will decide without guessing. Ramirez added, no drama on the net. Call what's real. Bill's piece was tighter. Eat when you can. Feet before feelings. Weapons before food. They stepped off into a cold that bit through desert and bone. The plan started simple, infill across broken ground, establish an OP over a mock command site, collect pattern of life, exfil on a time window. Simple always looks good on paper. By hour 5, the wind had teeth and the ground chewed ankles. By hour 8, people stopped talking about anything that wasn't the next contour line. Lauren's world narrowed to holds, angles, and water math. Jake handled radio checks like a heartbeat. Marcus pushed the pace, then paid for it with a stumble and a curse, then pushed again. They set the first OP under a ledge that cut the wind by half. Lauren went glass. Through heat, wiggle and dust, she tracked roleplayers moving crates, counted cycles, logged timing. A cadre plate flashed for 3 seconds at 620. The net stayed quiet. This wasn't a shooting lane. It was patience, the kind that hurts when you're tired. She watched, breathed, and let the clock do work. The first night came fast and mean. Temperatures dropped, discipline mattered more. They rotated rest in 10-minute bites while one always watched. Somewhere after midnight, a second objective hit the net, shift OP, cover a route for another squad limping with an injury, then fall onto a new grid. The map said, doable. The terrain said, not friendly. They moved. Hour 16 put them on a narrow spine with wind quartering hard. A steel plate popped at 500 with a cadre voice in their ear, Overwatch, 1 designated shot authorized. Threat to partner force. Bill looked at Lauren. She already had the dial set and the hold in mind. She waited for the lull between gusts, found the quiet picture, broke the shot. The return thump was faint, then the cadre said, impact. The other squad slid through the choke without a hit. They paid for that later with 2 extra clicks and 1 less blister. By dawn of day 2, the team looked older. Dirt lived in every seam. The schedule stacked, route recon under time, short halt for a lost comms play, then a forced riverbed crossing where the footing moved like ball bearings. Marcus slipped into a shallow hole and bit back a yell. Lauren grabbed a strap, hauled him out, and didn't slow. Tie it short, she said. He did, for once without a comeback. Midday brought the punch, a simulated hostage site inside a box canyon, partner force assault window in 40 minutes, enemy sniper Overwatch in play. Their job, find the shooter, break the shot inside a tight window, then go quiet for the breach. Donovan's voice came over the net, steady and close. No collateral. No skylines. If you can't own the shot, you don't take it. Reynolds added a clock. You have 10 minutes to set. They crawled into a firing hide that barely deserved the name. Rocks pressed ribs. Mirage boiled off the floor. The likely hide for the enemy sniper was a twisted outcrop that looked perfect until you saw the line-of-sight problems. Lauren scanned, not for the textbook answer but for the lazy mistake, an angle too good, a shadow that didn't fit. She found it in the periphery, a faint glint, then the micro-movement you only see when you're not trying too hard. She built the position like a house. Bag under, toes out, natural point of aim, no tension. Wind shoved left, then paused like it forgot what it wanted. She didn't chase. She waited for repeatable. Then a voice cut in, different net, open mic from another lane. Panic, distance wrong, someone rushing a shot. Bill tapped Lauren's shoulder twice, you're here, reminder. She settled deeper. On her scope, a sliver of a face lived behind glass. Not a kill plate, but a small steel the cadre had tucked to punish greed. If she missed, the role player, sniper, would kill a partner force breacher in 60 seconds. If she took too long, same outcome. She asked herself the only question that mattered, did the picture hold? She exhaled halfway, pressed, surprised the break. The rifle lifted and came back on its own. The delay stretched. Then a clean ring came back thin as wire. The cadre voice was instant. Overwatch, impact. Breach. 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 The assault popped off like a slammed door. Blanks echoed, smoke pots spilled gray into the cut, and radio traffic stacked fast. Lauren stayed on glass, looking for secondaries, refusing to admire a shot that was already history. 2 silhouettes moved where they shouldn't. She called it low. Bill relayed with 2 words. The partner force corrected. 30 seconds later, objective secure. They exfilled through a mess of thorn and rock while the adrenaline leaked out and the ache moved in. Food tasted like cardboard that remembered salt. Sleep came in ragged 2-minute cuts behind a windbreak. When Lauren blinked awake, she realized she'd been counting breaths in her sleep. Night 2 tested the edges of everyone's patience. A storm marched in from nothing and turned the ridgelines into a chorus of lies. Radio checks went longer. Batteries turned into currency. Marcus started to fray. He got snappish on tiny things, then quiet on big ones. When a NAV point didn't match the terrain, he pushed for the straight line over bad ground. Bill paused the team and looked at Lauren. She looked at the wind and the dark and the slope, then said, "Not with this cross." Donovan backed it. "Alternate route 2 is open." Marcus shook his head like he could make the earth cooperate by will. He couldn't. They took the alternate. It cost 20 minutes and saved a rolled knee they didn't have to spare. At hour 52, the cadre dropped the final anvil, a moving exfil window with an enemy sniper hunting. The team had to cross a bare saddle under time with intermittent cover and no margin. Reynolds's voice was lower than usual. "You'll get one shot to solve a problem. Solve the right one." Ramirez added, "And if the right one isn't a trigger, don't touch the trigger." They hit the approach and the first crack snapped over their heads, simulated, but your body doesn't parse paperwork. Everyone hit the dirt. The clock didn't care. Lauren rolled behind a rock barely wider than her ribs and found the angle. The shooter had set smart, high, off to their weak side, using a cut in the rock to funnel wind. She could take it. She knew she could. But the angle to her team was bad. If she missed or even edged the plate, the cadre would call a friendly down. The other option, redirect the team through a low cut that wasn't obvious and was slower, then take the shot clean from a better line. The clock ticked inside her teeth. Marcus hissed, "Take it," like pressure could make wind obey. Jake's hand was on the radio, waiting. Bill gave her nothing, no push, no shield, just trust with a stopwatch breathing down it. Lauren chose the team. Shift south 5. Low cut behind the juniper. "I need 15 seconds. Bill echoed the move. They crabbed left, ate rock and sand, and bled time while the sniper looked for a new angle. Lauren slid into the new line, built a fast house without rushing stupid, bag set, bipod bite, toes flat, cheek weld honest. Wind quartering, less boil, clean break. She sent the round and knew before it rang. "Impact," the grader said, same dry voice, but there was a thin thread in it this time, not quite approval, not quite surprise. They made the exfil by 80 seconds. On the far side of the line, people slumped and didn't pretend they hadn't almost broken. Reynolds walked the line and stopped where it mattered. "Two kinds of decisions," he said. "The ones you make to look good, and the ones you make so your team lives to hate your jokes. Learn the difference." Ramirez looked at the team like he was taking a photo he'd keep. Most lanes teach shooting. This one taught choices. He didn't point to Lauren. He didn't need to. Marcus looked like a man chewing an answer he didn't have. Jake looked like he'd sleep for a week. They hiked the last miles in a quiet that wasn't empty. The sun came up rude and bright, caught on dust in the air, and turned sweat to salt. At the gate, Bill turned and gave them the smallest nod. Weapons. Feet. Food. In that order. Lauren cleaned her rifle like a ritual that put the world back into parts she could torque to spec. When she closed the bolt on an empty chamber and felt it lock smooth, some knot inside her finally let go. The crucible didn't hand out medals. It handed out mirrors. In theirs, people saw enough to keep going or enough to quit loud. By lights out, rumors were already crawling the hall about one more hit, final operation, real time, no safety net of generous clocks. If fire showed them what they were, the next thing would show whether they could carry it on purpose. The canyon wouldn't negotiate. Neither would the mission waiting on the board, and by first light the letters were real enough to make everyone stand straighter: communications hub, fortified perimeter, layered security, tight exfil window. Briefing was short because time was the point. Reynolds ran the overview with a map and a finger. Fixed arrays here and here. Patrols on 10s and 40s. 2 sniper nests historically active, likely 1 decoy. You'll infill under low light, establish overwatch on the north spur, cover the breach team, and hold for data pull. If something breaks, it breaks fast. Solve what matters. Ramirez added task lines like he was laying cable. Radio discipline absolute. No cross-talk. If you say it, it's true. If it isn't true, don't say it. Bill finished with priorities. Security. Then security. Then everything else. They moved out in 2 chalks as the desert bled out its last heat. The route skirted the dry edge of Echo Valley and cut behind a set of stunted pines that didn't look like cover until you were under them. Jake kept the net clean and quiet, time-stamping every turn. Marcus took rear security without argument. That alone felt like a weather change. Lauren counted steps and angles, cataloged wind that slid around the spur in a lazy curve, and built the picture of what her holds would be before she ever saw the glass. The hub looked smaller than the words made it sound: low buildings, dish arrays, a fence that was honest chain link until the razor showed near the top. One tower watched the south gate, the other watched the service road. Between them, a shallow roofline offered a flat silhouette if you were sloppy enough to give it one. They weren't. Overwatch went into a pocket of rock and scrub that let a rifle see angles without a head peeking over skyline. Lauren built her hide with the same boring steps: bag set, bipod bite, natural point, stock pocketed, shoulders low, toes flat. Donovan slid in close enough to whisper logistics. Breach team is 5. Entry on your call. If you lose count on patrols, you tell me. We're not guessing today. Lauren nodded, eyes never leaving the scope. Wind ran right to left at the dish line, then tried to reverse behind the admin shed. She held a note in her mind: what looked like left at the tower might be flat at the gate. Patrol pattern set like clockwork: 2-man walk at the south gate, 3-man on the interior lane, single shadow breaking off to check generator stacks every 15. She confirmed cycle times twice, then once more because cycles are loyal until you need them most. At minute 27, the cadence hiccuped. The single shadow paused too long. Lauren didn't chase that either. She updated the team: generator check stretching, interior lane slow by 20 seconds. Adjust. Copy, Donovan said. Reynolds, on your numbers. The first big choice came wrapped in a clean opportunity. The roofline nest on the north tower shimmered just enough to show a sheet of glass. Decoy or not, it had a job: to steal your time or your shot. Marcus shifted his weight behind the rock, ready to feed her the obvious. He didn't. He waited. Lauren kept the tower in her periphery and hunted for the position that actually mattered. She found it offset, tucked low where a service ladder met a shadow at the corner of a shed. No glass flash, no clean outline, just a piece of dark that didn't breathe like the rest. She didn't call it yet. She watched it fail at being a shadow when a breath moved it wrong, barely, once. Breach team hold, Lauren said. Nest likely low, east corner by service ladder. North tower nest looks wrong. Call it decoy. Donovan, confirm on second movement. 30 seconds later the corner shadow shifted microscopic again. Windproof places don't do that. Lauren exhaled to the bottom and built the shot in her head. If she took it now, they'd lose surprise. If she waited, the breach team might walk into glass. Reynolds split the difference with his voice. 5 out from breach. Overwatch free on designated threats. Shooter set, Lauren said, not loud, not slow. She dialed elevation for 460 and held a half and a breath for wind that skated across the shed like it didn't care who was watching. She broke the trigger like it surprised her, and the world stayed small until the plate rang thin out of shadow. No celebration. Nest down, the grader said on a net that never congratulated anyone. Proceed. The fence cut took 8 seconds longer than planned because the top wire was stubborn and the breacher refused sloppy. Overwatch bought the 8 seconds with silence. 2 patrol silhouettes drifted into the dead zone between lights. Lauren tracked both without overleading the walk, eyes flicking back to the dish line for any tell that a radio call had gone out. Nothing. Donovan rolled the stack to the door, hand squeezed, door swung. Inside, the clock switched names. Tex moved to racks. Jake called data flow alive. Ramirez's voice was close enough to be inside your head. If the load slows, you own time by owning the fights you don't start. That became prophecy at minute 4. A truck on the south road came in early, angles wrong. Patrol cadence broke hard. A guard on the interior lane cut toward the admin door like he had a question and a flashlight. If he knocked, it would get weird. Lauren found him through glass and geometry, measured the hold, and walked through the tree of options. A clean shot would solve him and start a cascade. A light spill well short of the door would spook him toward a different path and by a minute with no reportable event. She chose the minute. Light spill, 6 meters short of admin door, south side, she whispered. Jake thumbed a handheld strobe under a rock and gave the dust a brief flare. The guard stopped, panned right, took 3 steps after his curiosity, then radioed some version of nothing and kept going. Inside, the download bar moved like paint drying. Donovan breathed a copy that sounded like gratitude in a different word. At minute 8, the nest decoy finally mattered, because it turned out not to be empty. A second head popped where the fake had been, a human making a human mistake, touching glass with forehead, a tiny reflection, then a shoulder blade edge. Lauren adjusted half a mil, felt the wind lay down, and sent the round at the quiet. The return was ugly metal on metal, a bracket hit, not the plate. No alarm. No shout. No time to admire the almost. She waited for the correction most people make when they think they heard a rat. The shoulder shifted again by reflex. She took the real one. Impact. 30 seconds to full pull, Jake said, voice tighter now. Check some clean. Patrol turn at South Gate, Marcus added, not pushing, just putting bricks in the wall. Interior about to cross admin lane. Hold inside, Donovan said. Overwatch, eyes on door. Lauren kept the door framed. The last 10 seconds took a year. Full pull, Jake said, and then the weight shifted from patient to fast. Exfil on North Spur, Reynolds said. Window 2 minutes. No hero routes. They came out like they'd rehearsed 100 times they hadn't, stack out, turn left, low, steady pace that looks slow and covers ground, not a sprint, not a parade. Overwatch stayed last, then peeled on a count, each person becoming a piece of brush again. The service road offered the one thing they didn't need, flat speed. They didn't take it. They cut behind the dish line like ghosts with blisters and disappeared into rock. The first chase element hit the wrong trail by 15 seconds, confused by footprints that weren't there because the team didn't leave any careless ones. At the spur, the wind turned spiteful. A silhouette popped on a ridge to their left, rifle shape, angle bad. Lauren didn't own the shot from her new line. Marcus did, by position. He froze for half a breath, then settled into the most boring posture she'd seen him use, no flex, no shoulder shrug, just bone and bag and a clean break. The steel rang a beat late. He didn't smile. He just moved when Bill said move. The last leg felt like walking through glue. Muscles misspelled messages. Radio calls tightened. Twice Lauren had to tell herself to blink. But the line held, the spacing stayed honest, and the exit ravine finally opened like an apology. At the rally, the first thing they did was count faces. All there. Back at Fort Rockland, debrief started before anyone's feet hit ice packs. Reynolds had a board and a dry marker. He wrote notes like receipts. Overwatch recognized decoy and real nest, saved breach team a fight they'd lose on timing. Light spilled deception, bought data time without a shot. Secondary nest, first bracket hit, second clean. Exfil pays steady under pressure. He let the marker hang. Bad, nearly lost 8 seconds on fence discipline. That is how hard problems start. Fix it. Ramirez looked like a man who'd been made to smile once and remembered how. You kept the net honest. You made choices that protected time. You shot when the picture held. You didn't when it didn't. That's a team that gets invited to hard work. Bill closed it out. You want the kind of boring that keeps you alive. We saw that today. In the chow hall, food tasted like food again. Jake sat with his tray and didn't stop moving his thumb for a minute, like the radio still lived there. Checksum was clean, he said to no one in particular, then laughed at himself. Marcus dropped down across from Lauren, looked like he wanted to say 3 different things, and settled on one. Good call on the light, he said. I would've, you know. He didn't finish the sentence with the version of him from 2 weeks ago. She nodded. You didn't push speed on the ridge. Good shot. He didn't shrug it off. Bill was right. If it's built wrong, it's wrong at any speed. Cleaning rifles back at Black Mesa felt almost calm. The scope glass showed a fine arc of dust on the edge. Lauren wiped it with a folded t-shirt scrap and tightened a ring screw a quarter turn. She logged win for the latter corner and wrote, "Decoy teaches greed," in the margin where only she would see it. Out on the catwalk, the sky turned the kind of orange that looks fake until the dust irons it out. People walked quieter. The bragging had thinned over the last week, replaced by something closer to work. When she finally stretched on the lower bunk, boots aligned heel to wall, the ache from the crucible was still there, but it had a shape now. It belonged to choices that had paid out instead of just pain that asked for attention. The resolution wasn't medals or speeches. It was the way the team passed a water bottle down a line without asking, the way Marcus checked a strap twice and didn't kick another rock, the way Reynolds's brief got shorter because he trusted them to fill the rest with discipline. Tomorrow had an empty square on the board for once. It wouldn't last. It didn't need to. They'd earned a quiet night, and the base, for the first time, felt like a place you kept rather than a place that kept you. That feeling carried into morning when the bugle cut the gray and Fort Rockland woke up cleaner than it felt in weeks. The board held a single line, final quals, range and field, awards at 1800. No drama, no surprises. People moved lighter, not because they weren't sore, but because the soreness finally meant something. Lauren tied her boots, checked her dope card, and slid the data book into her pocket like a promise. Jake tapped a knuckle on the doorframe as they filed out. Marcus fell in at the back, quiet and steady. Ironwood Ridge looked familiar in a way that didn't dull it. Flags twitched, mirage crawled, instructors set steel at clean numbers and dirty angles. Bill ran the safety brief in that dry tone that cuts out mistakes before they happen. Final qual is not a party. It's a record. Put the right things on it. Reynolds stood off to the side with Ramirez and Donovan, hands behind his back, eyes reading the line like a report he already knew by heart. Cold Bore at 300 opened the book. Lauren built the house like she always did. Feet flat, bag under, cheek weld honest, breath small and real. Her first shot broke with no story attached. Paper tore where it should. She didn't nod. She just recorded, adjusted a hair for a wind that pushed and let go, then walked the string out to 500. The line ran smooth, good hits, a few frustrated faces, one scope kiss corrected by a wad of gauze and a lesson learned too late. Echo Valley came next, because if the base taught anything, it was that wind has a vote. The relay stacked at 600 and 700, then reached for 800 while heat shimmered and lied. Lauren dialed enough to be honest and held enough to be humble. On her first 800 she felt the push late and took the miss like a receipt, then found the lull and paid it back with a ring that came slow and thin. She didn't chase a group that wasn't there. She wrote the holds, breathed, and moved on. Jake put up a clean run that made his grin awful to hide. Marcus shot like a man who'd learned to be boring on purpose. He let the rifle do its job. When he got an edge hit at 700, he didn't slam a second shot. He fixed the position, called the wind in his head, and sent one that mattered. Final field lane set at Redstone as a capstone, not a punishment. Staggered targets, barricade work, short sprints into longer breaths. Donovan read the time and space so the shooters didn't have to guess. Ramirez watched how people moved between problems more than how they smiled at solutions. Lauren flowed from standing to kneeling to prone without adding noise. She missed one moving plate on a poor lead, marked it in her head, then took the correction on the next pass and let it go. The lane grader's pencil made a firm line on her sheet and moved on. By afternoon, Black Mesa smelled like solvent and hot steel. Rifles came apart and went back together. People sat on footlockers with ice on knees and grins they weren't ready to show. The chatter had that soft edge you get when everyone knows the next part isn't about scores anymore. It's about names. At 1800 the parade square gathered them in rows that looked straighter than they felt. The sun sat low, turning the dust in the air gold for a minute and then giving it back. Reynolds stepped up with a clipboard and a voice that never needed a microphone. This cycle walked into wind, heat, bad angles, and clocks that didn't love you. Most of you learned to stop arguing with the problem and solve the piece you owned. That's what we train here. He called out the basic awards first: top run time, best field craft, best team radio. Jake went red at the ears when he heard his name and held the small plaque like it might float away. Marcus got a citation for improvement that sounded almost like a joke they didn't tell, except it wasn't. He took it and nodded at the ground, then at Lauren, once. Bill handled the marksmanship quals. He read numbers with no sugar and no drama. When he hit Lauren's name, he didn't pause for effect. Top of class, long gun. Consistent under Echo and Redstone. Built positions right, called wind honest, made hard shots boring. Corporal Lauren Mitchell. The claps weren't wild. They were real. Lauren stepped forward, felt her boots on the deck, and shook hands the way you do when you're awake for all of it. Bill's grip was dry and solid. Keep it boring, he said under the noise. Boring wins. She almost smiled. Yes, Sergeant. Ramirez spoke last, because his words came with work. Special Operations pays attention to repeatable skill and repeatable judgment. Today I saw both. Some of you will get invitations for further assessment. If your name is called, it's not a trophy. It's a door. He read 4 names. Lauren's was one of them. Her chest didn't swell. It settled. Reynolds added a level look. If you want it, it will cost what it costs. If you don't, you owe no apology to anyone. The sun slid. Shadows stretched. People broke ranks into small circles. Some went straight for phones. Some went straight for chow. Jake found Lauren with a grin that finally won. You're going to pretend you're not going to look at that invitation tonight, he said. She shook her head, half a laugh. I'm going to clean my rifle again and then maybe look at it. Marcus stepped up like a man walking into a conversation he used to avoid. You were right about boring, he said. I was loud for no reason. Lauren met his eyes. We all were, once. He stuck out a hand. She took it. No speeches. Later, when the square emptied and the camp softened into evening sounds, distant metal, a far-off truck door, someone laughing at something that probably wasn't funny, Lauren walked the edge of ironwood and let the ridge wind lift the sweat off her neck. The targets were gone, frames empty, lines drawn in the dirt scuffed flat by boots. She thought of Helena mornings that started in cold and stayed honest, of a grandfather who said the wind doesn't care and the bullet only tells the truth you give it, of Bill's quiet rules, Donovan's steady calls, Ramirez's short sentences, Reynolds's clocks. None of it felt big. It felt useful. Back at the barracks, she sat on the lower bunk and opened the envelope with her name typed centered. The words were simple: reporting instructions, assessment dates, gear. No praise. No flattery. A door. She set it on the pillow and pulled her rifle case close, checked torque with fingertips, wiped a stubborn crescent of dust from the scope ring, and clicked the latches shut. She could hear a coyote out past the fence, the same sound from the first week, a reminder that the desert doesn't clap for anyone. Lights out hit. The room fell into that half-dark where you can still see the outline of the rack above you. Jake breathed even and deep across the aisle. Marcus turned once and then went still. Lauren lay on her back, counting breaths without trying to, feeling the weight of the day move off her shoulders and into memory where it belonged. She didn't replay every shot. She didn't need to. The lesson wasn't fireworks. It was simple enough to write on one line of a data book: build the house, trust the wind you measured, shoot the shot that matters, let the rest go. Fort Rockland would keep training people tomorrow. New names would argue with the valley until they learned to listen. The base would be the same hard place, and that was fine. She had a place in it now, not because she shouted louder, but because she made the work quiet. A place you kept, not a place that kept you. And if the next door opened, she knew how she'd walk through it, steady, eyes open, one shot at a time.